Let's travel to 502 Winery in Louisville and try some of their unusual wines. And while we're there, we'll try Louisville's first craft beer, Fall City Beer.
Around the turn of the century, there were a few big breweries in town who had a monopoly on the beer because they owned the bars and most of the restaurants. So Fall City came about with a collection of small shop owners who wanted to break that monopoly and start their own beer business here in town. And it grew to the point where it was the biggest brewery in Louisville, up to Prohibition, and survived Prohibition, and then were poised to become one of the biggest regional breweries post-Prohibition. Well, Fall City has changed throughout the years. We started as a craft beer. We were a local small beer, and so we could do kind of like we're doing now. We can play with recipes a little bit more. After Prohibition, most Americans were drinking the same American Light Pilsners, and so Fall City's focus shifted to that, and we tried to compete with the bigger brands like Budweiser and Miller and Coors. They were still a regional brewery, couldn't really keep up. The last ditch effort for Fall City in the 70s to compete was Billy Beer, which was a beer named after then President Jimmy Carter's brother, Billy. And it was a PR disaster. So after that, Fall City sold and went to Evansville, Indiana. It was there for a few years, then was bought by the Pittsburgh Brewing Company. They kept it alive for a couple decades, and then it went defunct for a few years, and our now owner bought the brand back from the Pittsburgh Brewing Company and decided to bring it back to Louisville, Kentucky. Now our focus is coming back to where it all began, with trying to bust up those monopolies through good craft beer. I went to school for teaching. I'm a certified teacher in the state of Kentucky, but I took up a hobby, which was home brewing, and I fell in love with it. And I got into the beer scene by talking to brewers just because I wanted to know what they were doing and how they were doing it. And I got offered a job, and I found my passion, and I went for it, and I learned on the job. It's named for our city, first of all. Fall City is Louisville, Kentucky, so they're synonymous. And also, there's still in this city, there's old branding from leftover from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and on. And people still recognize that logo. Some of them don't even know that we're brewing again now, but they know what Fall City beer is.
I got into this several years ago. I have a farm over in Anderson County, Kentucky. I bought a vineyard that was next to me there. Just kind of interested in furthering the grape industry in Kentucky. I always saw grapes as not the answer, but an answer to the agricultural issues we have here in Kentucky. So I got into it there. I actually owned that vineyard for 4 years and sold it to a minority interest partner that I had at the time. And then very shortly thereafter got a call from the folks here in Louisville. We're unique in the fact that we don't grow any grapes ourselves. We buy only from other growers, whether here or anywhere else. And we make all the wine right here in downtown Louisville. Far and away our biggest seller, I would say, is our Bourbon Barrel Red. Some people mispronounce what that actually is because we use sort of an expletive type spelling on the label. So people have all sorts of words they come up with that they think it is other than bourbon, but it's we do in fact age it in bourbon barrels for a short period of time. We do make a drier red wine called Bordeaux. It's not spelled exactly like the one in like the city in France, but it is in fact a Bordeaux blend of grapes. We also make a very sweet red called box wine, B-A-C-H''S, the composer, not the container, as I say. Then we make 3 other whites as well. We do a Riesling, kind of a semi-sweet. We do a dry white called White Noise, which is all Kentucky fruit, actually, based on a Vidal Blanc grape. Grown a lot here, very prolific in Kentucky. We also make a very sweet white wine for those people who might like a Moscato or that sort of thing, which we call Kentucky Lady, and it's also got a lot of Kentucky fruit in it, but not always 100%. The reputation in early days of Kentucky wines were not good, and not always deservedly so. But the longer that we go through this process in Kentucky, the more our growers learn and the more our winemakers learn here in Kentucky, we really are starting to make some good wines here. You're starting to see more awards being won nationally with Kentucky wines, and we're starting to get a little bit of a name now.